Okay, so this question that we're going to look at today is on 3D, Pythagoras and trigonometry. So it's going to be two questions in one, as that's what this question is about. Okay, so 3D, Pythagoras and 3D trigonometry. So what we've got is, we're told this little piece of information: a sensor can detect any movement up to a distance of 6.5 meters. Okay, so I'm going to just write this down on the other sheet because it's not printed on that one. Okay, so that's our key number. Okay, so our question is, a storeroom is in the shape of a cuboid, as shown below. The sensor is placed at A, so that when it is aimed directly at B, where BD is 2 meters. So this little distance here is 2 meters. And it says the front of the sensor is 20 centimeters from A along the line AB. Okay? Right. Will the sensor be able to detect movement at B? You must show your working. Okay, so what we're going to use is, we're going to do a little bit of Pythagoras in this first part. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to highlight the routes that we're going to be taking. So what we actually need to do is, we need to figure out if this distance here is 6.5 centimeters. That's what I need to figure out. And we're going to use Pythagoras, and we're going to be using AE, but we're going to need this distance here, which is BE. Okay, so that's what we need to work out first. Okay, and we're going to use the right angle triangle at the base of our cuboid, which is this one here, to help us figure out that length. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I'm going to draw it out for you so it's a bit more visual. So what we've got is, we've got a base of 2 meters, we've got a length of 5.5 meters here, and we're going to be working out X there. Now, not drawn to scale, obviously. So we're going to use Pythagoras. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. We know that the hypotenuse is c. So we're going to do 2 squared plus 5.5 squared equals our c squared. So 2 squared plus 5.5 squared. And that gives me 34.25 is our c squared. And we're going to square root our answer. Okay, square root my answer, and I've got 5.9 meters. Now notice I've rounded to 1 decimal place, because in our diagram, we've got to 1 decimal place. Okay, so what I now know is that this length here is 5.9 meters. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to use the orange triangle to work out the distance from A to B. Now I know AE because it's the same as this length here. So this is 3.2 meters. Now this triangle is a little bit easier to visualize. Okay, so we're going to do Pythagoras again. I am going to draw it out though, just so you can see. So we've got another triangle. We've got 3.2 meters, and we're using our answer that we've just figured out. Now you should know from what I've told you is that if you've made a mistake in this part, whatever you carry on in this next question, you will get follow-on marks for it, okay? So don't be afraid. If you think you've made a mistake, just carry on with it, okay? Make sure your answer makes sense, because obviously this is meant to be the longest side of the triangle. Just check that it is longer than the other 2 sides, because otherwise you really have made a mistake. Okay, so we're doing the same thing again. We're going to square both sides. We're obviously adding them because we're still finding the hypotenuse. Okay, so 3.2 squared plus 5.9 squared, and that gives me 45.05. I'm going to square root my answer to give me 6.71 meters. Okay, so 6.7 meters. Okay, now what we have to do now is we have to think really carefully about this. So if I just go back, so we're saying that this length here is 6.7 meters. Now that's the whole length from the corner here to B here. Now it says in the question, the front of the sensor is 20 centimetres along the line AB. So this little distance here, yeah, is 20 centimetres. Now we're checking to see if the sensor will be able to detect movement at B, which is 6.5 metres. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put 6.7 metres, take away those 20 centimetres, leaves us with 6.5 metres. So yes, the sensor will detect movement at B because we wanted it to be 6.5 metres away. Okay, let's have a look at part B then. So part B wants us to work out, so I'm going to keep the triangle with us, okay? It says show the angle BAE equals 61.3 correct to 1 decimal place. Okay, now I haven't practiced this, so let's make sure that we've got it right. So we've got the answer and we're just going to prove it. So it says BAE, so we're working out this angle up here, okay? So we want to know this angle here, X up there. Okay, so I'm going to draw it out on my little bit of paper, okay? So we can visualize. Now I can use any of my measurements. Okay, I'm going to use 3.2 meters because I know that that is correct. Okay, because that's not one of my lengths that I've worked out. I'm actually going to go with the 6.7 on the diagonal. Okay, and then we're going to work this out. So this is our trigonometry. Okay, and what would normally happen is in a 3D trigonometry question, it might be that you've been required to do some 3D work before it. Okay, so you might have had to have worked out a length that way. Okay, but let's have a look. So we label the sides. Okay, hypotenuse, adjacent, opposite. I don't need the opposite. So when I'm looking at SOHCAHTOA, I'm working with A and H, so it's going to be CA. Okay, so we're looking at CA. So cos X equals A over H. Cos X, I know my A is 3.2, my X is 6.7. Okay, remember to work out a missing angle, you do the inverse of cos. So it's cos to the minus 1 of 3.2 over 6.7. So let's see if we've done it correctly. We should be getting the answer of 61.3. Fingers crossed. 3.2 divided by 6.7. Absolutely pretty much spot on. What we've got is we'll have a rounding error because I've rounded this to 6.7 and not used the whole number. Okay, correct to 1 decimal place. I'm happy with that being 61.4 degrees. Okay, now with it being higher, it probably would require us to use a more accurate answer. So if I go back to here and I do my 3.2 squared plus 5.9 squared and I square root my answer, it gives me that number. So if I use that, if I do cos to the minus 1 of 3.2 over my answer, let's see if it gives us a more accurate answer. In fact, it's even higher. Okay, so I think we are happy with that, and I would say that that would give you the 3 marks, but that's how you would do that question.